Okay, so let's talk about how the brain works real quick. How many people are interested in how the brain works? Now we're going to get into some real science. I'm going to try to go through this quickly, but if you have any questions, so we don't run out of time, if you have any questions, just ask. Next slide. So this is a diagram, 5 years to 20 years. This is actually how your brain develops. On the left side is gray matter, which is the reddish yellow. You can see the diagram, gray matter volume. So reds and yellows are high gray matter volume. Blues and purples are very low, 0.0 and 0.1 levels of gray matter. And what you do as you age and become more specialized is your gray matter becomes more white matter. Now, if you think about it, what did we say earlier and the difference between male and female brains?
Females have more gray matter?
Females have more gray matter than males, which is interesting, right? Because then if we get the females to get into higher levels of learning, they actually end up with more white matter than males, which puts them in better position to be like executive leadership, better engineers, better different things. So this is one of the interesting things about how the brain develops. As you can see, this corpus callosum is less developed in younger years. Can anybody tell me why? Has anybody seen kids who aren't very well coordinated playing sports, right? And you develop coordination as you grow older. Well, one of the reasons right-hand, left-hand coordination becomes better as you play sports is because you're training the brain to grow better neural connections across the corpus callosum. Anybody know what part of this area is? So you're born. It's one of the fastest areas. You can see it's already blue and purple. Very low gray matter, very high white matter. Does anybody know what that part of the brain is? It's the occipital lobe, which has to do with vision. So if you think about it, you become very specialized with vision and interpretation of motions and different things at a very young age, right? This is probably a survival thing. And this part here is also highly specialized early on. Does anybody know what this part of the brain has to do with? What is it? Yes, you're actually right. But I was thinking more along the lines of digestion. So this becomes, digesting food is very important early on, right? So you don't die. And anyway, so this is how your brain develops. Now, the part that takes the longest to develop is the frontal lobe. Does anybody know what happens in the frontal lobe?
Is that like...
Exactly. Well, not logic, but your executive function.
Yeah.
So all your calculation ability, all of your higher order thinking skills, metacognition, different things like the why of what you're doing. Why am I doing this? How many people ask that in school? What the heck do I have to learn this for? Oh my God, it's so boring, right? Why am I listening to this guy about neuroscience today? Thanks. Anyway, that's all part of your executive function, metacognition, and the frontal lobe. And those take the longest to develop. And some people, I'd say, never develop the frontal lobes. And there's reasons why. Maybe they don't go into higher education. Maybe they don't pay attention in school. Maybe they drop out. Maybe they get addicted to drugs or whatever. Alcohol, something else. Those parts of the brain never seem to get developed in some people, depending on the way they were raised, the way they grow up. Next slide. Okay, so this is basically the same picture you saw at the beginning. You guys remember the picture from the beginning. That was just a very well-drawn neural connection. So extrinsic environmental stimuli from the body is received by the central nervous system in the form of an electrical impulse. That travels down the neurons. The neurons drop chemicals to the next neuron. And the more specialized this becomes, or the more this happens across that neuron, the more specialized it becomes, the smarter you get, the more it turns to white matter, so forth and so on. And a change in the quality of synapse occurs, and that part of the brain, or whatever that neuron's connected to, becomes more specialized, to become an expert. Okay, next. So that stimuli is passed along a pathway then with other parts of the brain. Remember, it's a 5-dimensional organ. So that is creating a template. It's getting passed around different regions through connectivity, increasing connections between the neurons, and is growing a template. And this is sort of the template we were talking about. So listening to a lecture. It goes the ear, the brainstem, auditory thalamus, And it goes into all these different processes and things, and this becomes part of the whole template. So one day when you're thinking back, if you were really interested in this, and you become a neuroscientist later on in your life, you're like, you know what, that guy totally turned my brain on. And so that template, you're going to remember everything then that you heard today, but not only what you heard, you're going to remember the smells in the room, you're going to remember what people look like, you're going to remember what was going on outside. All of this gets burned into the template that will become a memory later on. All right, so multiple loops together become a template of memory. Next. And eventually, it goes into the hippocampus, which is where memory and learning happen. So if you're not getting a good vibration from what I'm talking about today, you're not learning jack. As a matter of fact, that's one of the challenges of teachers and learning as you're sitting there. Because maybe you're not interested in anything I'm saying. Maybe I'm not entertaining enough for you. I'm not a TV program or an actor or some comedian up here. Maybe it's not entertaining enough for you. So it's not increasing something called dopamine. Dopamine, if you don't have that dopamine good feeling about what I'm saying, then you're not going to learn it. It's just not going to happen. The neurons will not make a connection. No chemical or electrical signal will pass. And nothing will happen. You just have air for your brain for the next 20 minutes. Next. So the memory template includes all psychological, emotional, sensory, and physical qualities that occurred during the reception of this impulse within the body. All right, next. If the memory is triggered at some later point, that whole template will be innervated, and you'll remember certain sounds and feelings and emotions and different things you had while you were listening, while you have that memory. How many people remember their grandma? Why do you remember your grandma? How many people remember how she smelled? What her house looked like?
Yeah, I remember our house.
How the house smelled. You know, how many have a specific memory of going to eat something with your grandma? Like grandma's pumpkin pie at Thanksgiving. Egg rolls, coconut pie. I mean, look at the emotions and the psychological factors, everything. What I'm doing is stimulating this whole template, which is stored in the hippocampus. And so maybe millions of neurons are actually all connecting from different parts of the brain to get you to remember all these great sensations that happen with that memory. And that's all done by something, that neurotransmitter going across that synapse from the very first slide called dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. There are others. Okay, next slide. So during impulse transmission along stimulated pathways within this template, long-term potentiation and neurogenesis initiated and the learning process begins. You're learning every time you create a memory. You're learning something. It's changing the shape of your brain. It's predicting later on what quality of life that you're going to have. As this process continues over time, one becomes smarter, more intelligent, and gains expertise and proficiency. A recent dissertation I worked that I did actually demonstrated this. So we had a class that did chess, we had a class that did exercise, we had a class that did both, and we had a class that did nothing. Just regular school. And we gave them an intelligence test before, intelligence test after. We took a blood test before for certain proteins in the brain that are associated with intelligence and neurogenesis. And we took a blood test after to see which one would have the best increase. Our hypothesis was that a combined group of chess and exercise would have the greatest increase. And what in intelligence and in the proteins associated with it. What we actually found out was that chess has an immediate impact on your intellectual capacity over a short period of time. Learning chess actually increased the intelligence of the chess group better than any other group. And exercise actually increased the amount of the protein that's associated with neurogenesis. So you would think that the chess people would actually use more of the brain, you'd have more of this protein. It's not true. Exercise group actually increased more of the protein that increases neurogenesis, which increases learning and memory in the hippocampus. Not chess. Chess actually helps specialize the already existing templates that are associated with intelligence in the frontal lobe. So if you want to get smarter, play chess. If you want to grow a better brain, exercise. Exercise increases the amount of gray matter in the brain. That's important because the gray matter becomes white matter, which helps you become a smarter, more intelligent person later on. Now, let's get to screen time.
Can I
Next.
ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Does that continue to happen after you reach adulthood, or is this the formative age in which that exercise is most important?
It will continue throughout your life.
Okay.
You can learn anything throughout your life if you dedicate the practice and time necessary to do it. There's no part of your life where the brain becomes static and you can't do something new or you lose something, or you can't get it back. No time in your life. So that happens throughout life.
So like exercise like increases gray matter. So does chess like increase the amount of gray matter trained into white matter?
Essentially, yes.
So like if you like exercise like a lot and then you play chess a lot, that'd be like really good for you.
Yes, exactly. Well, that was our hypothesis. What we found out was that the 9-week period simply wasn't long enough to get through this process where exercise plus chess combined would show up on higher intelligence tests. You actually need a longer time span to do that. And this is sort of what happens. So proliferation of stem cells. Your brain is constantly proliferating stem cells. As you grow up, you proliferate less and less and less. But if you can increase BDNF, which then triggers the proliferation of stem cells into differentiating into neurons, well, then you've captured some of them. There's another step to that. Neurons migrate in the hippocampus into new areas, so then you become sort of like new learning. It becomes a new memory. If that happens, the neurons mature. That takes 2 to 4 months for them to mature. Now, you actually haven't increased your intelligence yet. Then you have to model working memory. Working memory has to do with a connection between the hippocampus and the frontal lobe, prefrontal cortex. Then, after that happens, positive transfer of information, if you use chess or exercise, then that has to get a positive transfer to knowledge in something that, I won't get into what that means, but basically that's it. Then it has to summarize. So it has a summation with all the other templates in your brain to actually be a collective intelligence that will show up on a test in research. Okay, so that's how you create a brain and become more efficient. Next. Neuron. This is a neuron. Next. This is neuritogenesis. This is actual picture of a neurite in the brain. This is extremely tiny. And so in 2008, it was the first time neuroscientists were actually able to capture an image of the very beginning of a neuron. And all of these growth cones and everything will become dendrites or axons that will then connect to other existing neurons in your brain and become neuron in a template. Next. What happens is this part of the brain, is called a mushroom head, and so an axon will connect to this, and that's where you start to create new templates. Next. And synaptogenesis. So this is how synaptogenesis works. You have the axon reaches out, and you have all these factors that happens, and it forms a synapse, and then you have a new neuron. Next. Long-term potentiation is a specialization. You have more receptors growth, which specializes the neuron. Once it's growing and it gets that axon-dendrite connection, more of these receptors can receive more chemicals. The synapse becomes stronger. You can have better and more proficient signal transfer, become more intelligent, more specialized in whatever neuromuscular movement, something like that. Next. All right. That didn't come out very good at all. Next. All right, the brain on screen time. This is what I want to try to get to. We have 5 minutes left. We're going to go through this really quick. Next. Okay, so children's average daily screen time is 7 hours. My God. You sit like zombies in front of those screens. Look at this guy. He's already been there, what, an hour? All right, children need a minimum of 60 minutes of vigorous exercise a day where you are actually breathing hard and heavy. If you don't get that, you have gray matter loss. If you have gray matter loss, you're going to have what could have been white matter loss, right? Only 20% of females nationwide and 35% of males at your age receive this amount of daily activity, according to the 24 Centers for Disease Control.
Is that 60 minutes? Can it be spread out 10 minutes here, 30 minutes?
Yes, and that's exactly what we did. We actually showed that 5-minute bursts of high-intensity exercise training right before class help the students the most.
Okay.
So you can do that throughout the day with multiple classes, like 10 minutes. Next. So, gray matter atrophy of screen time. Screen time causes gray matter atrophy in the frontal lobe, which has to do with your intellectual and stuff, intelligence levels and executive function. Striatum, another part of the brain. Reward and punishment and impulse control. Gray matter loss in this area. Then you have no impulse control. You don't know how to have good behavior. Insula, social empathy. Right, wrong, interpersonal behavior. So the more screen time that you get, according to this person in her study, in her review of literature, the more screen time you get, the less you have good interpersonal relationships. You don't know how to act around other people. Outcome, corruptibility to create positive interpersonal relationships, because you have gray matter loss in these areas. You also can have reduced cortical thickness. This is linked to decreases in intelligence, impaired dopamine function, which means that you have no ability to control the pleasurable dopamine function or non-pleasurable dopamine function, which could lead to depression or it could lead to addiction. Next. On the opposite hand, playing Super Mario Brothers actually increases gray matter. In this study. So they increase gray matter in the right hippocampus formation, the right prefrontal cortex, and the bilateral cerebellum. So as you're watching that screen, you're actually imagining yourself moving and jumping and doing all these things. So it increased gray matter in their cerebellum and in their memory cortex, which is the hippocampus, and in the right prefrontal cortex, which is actually a center for intelligence. Yes.
What about like football games? Like Madden. Like you're
I have
imagining
no idea.
yourself
I don't
running
know.
around.
That has, as far as I know, those haven't been used in scientific research, so in neuroscience research. Somebody else have a question? You were stretching, smelling your armpits. Okay. Therapeutic applications suggested in mental health disorders for using video games to increase gray matter can help with PTSD and possibly schizophrenia. So schizophrenia is equivalent to addiction, which is equivalent to internet addictive disorder, internet addiction, basically. So you can get addicted to actually being on the computer and having screen time, which is equivalent to the same schizophrenia and PTSD symptoms. Next. 3 minutes. Oh yeah, so these are brain waves. So what happens, what I think happens, this is my own hypothesis. This is not scientific research yet. What I think happens is when you sit in front of a screen, your brain waves actually go into sleep mode. Okay? And when you're in sleep mode, you can't learn anything. So even when I'm lecturing to you, if you're in this sort of uninterested sleep mode, you're not going to learn anything I'm telling you. And if you try and take a test later on, you'll be like, I don't know, I don't like that. F, oh my God, F. But anyway, so this is a scan of drawing, brain waves while you're drawing. So you can see the difference in this spike of activity, because drawing requires right, left side, front, back, all parts of the brain to draw. This is reading. So you can still see there's big spikes and high levels of brain waves, different types of brain waves during reading. Reading requires imagination. You're actually, in your brain, you're actually reenacting all the scenes and inserting yourself. And so this is motor control, all kinds of parts of the brain. Now, this is TV and screen time. And you can see it's like, blah. Because you know why? Your brain doesn't have to do anything. All of a sudden, you've given power over to something else to do all your imagination for you. Basically, all your thinking for you. And, well, I'll stop with that because I don't want to get like other things. But there could be there's things like subliminal messages. I'm sure you've heard stuff like that. In your sleep mode, you can plant subliminal messages in your mind, right? In sleep mode. And you won't even know it's there. So you have to be careful about things. Remember, everything that you see, everything you hear, everything you touch, everything you smell, where you're at in space compared to everything else in the space around you, feng shui, all of these things impact the shape of your brain and how you're able to think and then how you're able to develop the rest of your body for the rest of your life. So if I can leave you with anything, that's what I'll leave you with. I think you have to go. Time's up. You have a question?
Oh, wait. So, we're in front of a screen right now.
You are in front of a screen. Interesting. But hopefully I made it entertaining and waved my arms enough that all the magic of
I paid attention to know that we're in.
All right. Thank you all very much for the opportunity to be here.